Hey guys, welcome back to Our Beautiful Life. I was saying before that the reason that we started this channel initially was to document our immigration experience with USCIS throughout the steps. And of course, 5.5 years later, we still have not done that. We've put lots of videos on there about our travels together, but life happens and things happen and you don't make time to make those videos. So let's talk about USCIS. If you're new here, welcome to our channel. If you're coming back, glad to have you back. So what happens after you marry somebody from another country? So we got married in Turkey and I spent a wonderful 2 weeks there with my husband, and then, well, I went home by myself. Because you can't take your husband home with you or your wife home with you just because you're married. So what happens next? So what happens next is you do not need a lawyer. If you have a complicated process, I would recommend that you get advice from a lawyer and pay the fee for that. But I will tell you that I have friends who have obtained lawyers to do their process, and I have seen people like us who do their process on their own, and it takes the same amount of time no matter who's doing the process. The benefit of having an attorney, for people who can afford it, is they are going to double, triple, and quadruple check your documents so that you don't make a mistake. Because if you make a mistake in a USCIS document, it will set your process back substantially. And that did happen to us in our process. Not to us as a couple, but to my husband's daughter. So what happens is you go to USCIS's website and you say, you start researching how to bring your spouse to the USA. So the things that I had to do when I came to the USA was, when I went to Turkey, I had to have documents translated into Turkish for their process. When I came to the USA, I needed my documents to be translated from Turkish into English. So my marriage book, for every process that I do, changing my driver's license, if I move states, I have to have that translated copy of my marriage book in the original every time. So you do need to translate the documents from the country that you got married in into English prior to coming home, because you're going to need those documents to be translated into English to be accepted, so that you can change your social security card, so that you can change your driver's license, and so that you can change your name in your bank and all the other stuff that you have to do when you get married and you're a female. I would say make sure that you have all those documents when you come home. So you go to USCIS website, and I'm going to tell you, it tells you step by step what you need to do and what form you need to do. And there's lots of videos that will walk you through the process. I'm not going to do that. Not going to do that, but I will tell you that you're going to go to USCIS and find the form that you need. What we needed was I-130 in order to bring my husband into the United States. People will say, oh, he married you for a green card. Well, if you want to marry someone from another country and you're a U.S. citizen, yes, they need a green card to come live with you. Otherwise, they cannot. So if you marry someone from another country, they do need a green card to come into this country. I will say that from what I'm hearing, it's a lot more complex to come into the country from another country on an I-130 than it was when I got married. I think the laws and the forms have changed a little bit, and the fees. But what you do need to know is that this I-130 is where you're going to start. The I-130 tells you what documents you need. It tells you what evidence you need to prove that your marriage is real. It tells you what steps you need to take and how much money you have to pay. I can't tell you the fees because we're 5.5 years in, and I will tell you that because of COVID, I think we were kind of lucky in that my husband and I only lived apart for 9 months of our marriage. before he was able to come to the United States with his green card. Unfortunately, they did not transfer his child with him at the time that he came in, so she actually lived in Turkey longer while her process was still going. I will tell you that when I started my process with my husband for his green card, the USCIS officers, you could actually call and speak to a person if you had a question, but it's very complicated to get through to a person now. But they do have Ask Emma on the USCIS website, and honestly, if you word the question correctly, you're going to get to the documents that you need. What I'm going to tell you is that marrying someone in another country and starting the immigration process is very unromantic. It's not romantic. It's grueling and it's personal, and it feels like they want to be in your bedroom. It really does. It feels like USCIS wants to be in your house with you, because things that are cute and endearing when you're dating someone, or when you're first married, or in the beginning stages of your marriage, you're not thinking. Some people are very sentimental and they save ticket stubs and they take lots of pictures and they do things like that. But some people really aren't very sentimental and don't save those mementos, especially people like me who are in our 40s and we've done all those things before maybe. And you know, you start learning what's important in life, and ticket stubs aren't it. You're not going to have those things when you're 90. But if you are going through a USCIS immigration process and you want your spouse to come to the United States to be with you, they are going to want proof that what you are doing is real. It's not fake. Because I promise you, if you're doing a fake marriage process, you will get caught. It is not something you should do. It's prosecuted. You can go to prison for it and pay lots of money and fines. So don't do it. But if you are serious about getting married, you need to save. If you go to concerts together, if you do events together, save your ticket stubs from that. If you rent a hotel room, save the receipts. When you go together with friends and family, you have to take pictures together. I will say that for me, that going through the immigration process, it de-romanticized my relationship in the early stages, because it just felt like everything was about proof now. But if you want your spouse to come to the United States, everything is about proof. The United States wants proof that you're really married and that you are really together. So you have to save pictures. You need proof that you've met each other's friends and family, and that you do things together with your friends and family. You need proof that you're living together in the same home. They want to see that your rental document, that your lease has your spouse included. They want bank statements that show that you and your spouse are joining your finances together. It is very serious, USCIS. The thing is, my husband actually won a diversity visa. He was very lucky, and he won a diversity visa, but we went ahead with the green card process because we were already beginning to research that. So I often think back to when he won his diversity visa and wonder if that process would have been easier, but that's a whole other video, I'm sure. So we spent hours on the phone together, video chatting, translating, going through this document. It took us several days to do our I-130 together.
Museum ticket.
Yes.
Theater ticket. Vacation hotel billing.
I say this. He's helping me because he's very organized. But yes, if you go to museums together, anything that you do together, you need to save the tickets and the receipts. But I said this.
And you plane ticket. I'm go to Turkey, come back.
They want proof that you guys have seen each other in the country that
Yeah,
your
it's very
spouse was in.
important because this people need to go console for interview. They ask everything original. What you sent to USCIS, upload any product, you need to show everything USCIS console in
So,
Turkish USA console.
so when you're doing your I-130, it asks you for all sorts of evidence. Also, it asks for letters from your family members or friends to verify that they witnessed that you've been together in a relationship and that you're legitimately married. So in his case, his parents and his sister actually had to write letters stating that they participated in our marriage ceremony and witnessed our relationship. And my sister actually was very much a part of my process with my husband. We talked a lot, and my sister actually provided a letter saying that she vouched for the fact that we were legitimately married. So in addition to all of this evidence that you also need your friends and family to write letters for you saying that you are in fact married to one another and that they have witnessed that your relationship is legitimate. I am not joking when I tell you that USCIS wants to know everything, every detail about your relationship. Once you decide to proceed with the green card process, it is not romantic what the USCIS wants from you. It is very hard, and it takes a lot of, you have to want to do it because it is tiring, it is expensive, and it is not private. It puts your life under a microscope. The USCIS is looking at your life under a microscope together.
And console, what asked me, I'm going to interview. They say, oh, do you like the cheese? I say, do you like the cheese and beer? I say, why? Why you ask this? And she say, because you go to Wisconsin. I say, yes, I love beer and I love the cheese. Because Wisconsin famous for cheese and beer event.
They didn't ask you about me so much.
They ask your family, they ask your
My siblings, my mom and dad,
yes, mom and
my
dad,
child.
what doing in the child time, which school going, and they
So
ask.
my husband had to be able to provide answers about me, which was challenging for him because he actually had to, his English was not very good. So
But they talking with me Turkish. They ask me, do you want to talk in Turkish or English? I say, yeah, if you know good Turkish, okay, but we talking half Turkish, half English.
he
This is
studied
okay.
so hard in English to answer those questions at the consulate for his interview to come to the United States. But that was later in our process, like after the NBC got our documents.
Yeah.
The first thing you have to do is file your I-130 with USCIS, and then they determine, you get a receipt saying, hey, we received your documents. And then you can go onto the USCIS website, which we did every day. Every day we were on the USCIS website looking for, did this get approved? Did this get approved? I was calling USCIS. I was calling NBC. You can't do that now. But I was calling them and asking them, when is this going to be approved? How long does this take? And they were surely tired of me by the time he did get approved. So filing with my husband, we filed his daughter at the same time, one right after the other, which is correct and appropriate. However, it took years to find out that I apparently checked 2 boxes on the form. So this is where I would say double, triple, quadruple check your documents before you submit them, because when you're finding out what is taking so long in the process, you're not necessarily going to get an answer as to why your process hasn't been pushed through. And our girls' process took a long time to get handled, and a lot of assistance. Thankfully, I was able to write our local senator and the senator did help us get her process pushed through more than once, not only through USCIS, but with NBC, so that she could come and be with her dad in the United States. Because when you're calling USCIS, you get a lower level officer sometimes, and sometimes that information's not updated. It's not updated in the computer. So I would say make sure that you 100% know what boxes you checked. And if you want to talk to an attorney to, get advice, then great. But I will tell you that USCIS does give you the same information that an attorney would give you. You just really have to read the fine print and follow the instructions completely. Follow the instructions completely and check yourself. My husband's always checking me and I'm always irritated, but if you don't check yourself, you will be set back and maybe even denied. It's a very grueling process. So you want to make sure that you do it correctly, because if you do it incorrectly and you get denied, you have to pay the fee again. The government will take your money and you will have to pay it again if you make a mistake. So don't make a mistake. That's
It's not about just money. Yeah, okay, you maybe pay money, but you're wasting time. Time never come back.
That's true. Also, my recommendation from our experience would be don't move. Don't move in your process. We are restless people. We like to change our scenery. So we moved a couple of times during the process, and that will slow your process down. It will. So if you move during your process and you're like us and you have to move, make sure that you always give USCIS your updated address. It always has to be updated in USCIS, and you have to submit an address change anytime that you move. Throughout your whole process until you're a citizen, you always need to update your address. So the things that happened.
I want to say this is, and sponsor need.
I haven't got
just
there.
Wife and husband sponsor. Maybe outside people didn't sponsor anything. Maybe father, maybe friend. But sponsor need to change address. When you're doing
that's
the
correct.
US
That's correct.
citizen, this is finished.
So in addition, when you are applying to be a U.S. citizen, you need a sponsor to come to the USA. Sometimes that's not going to be your spouse. Sometimes that's not going to be your husband or wife. I was my husband's sponsor. So anytime we would move, I also had to update my address. Now, once they get their green card and their permanent resident card, it sort of changes your role a little bit. But during the green card process, you are the sponsor. You are responsible to keep your information up to date. Also, there are financial guidelines to being a sponsor for someone to bring your spouse to the country. So you should also look into that too. You have to make a certain amount of money for the amount of people that live in your house in order to be able to sponsor your spouse. I was able to sponsor my spouse, and honestly, it's not a significant amount, but some people cannot do that. You have to have a W-2. You have to have a W-2 to be able to sponsor. You can't be self-employed. You have to have a real job.
No, self-employed, okay.
Really? I thought that there was a problem.
Okay.
Even with DoorDash and things like that?
Yeah, this is $10.99.
Okay.
And you need to give $10.99.
What was it with our friends? We had friends who went through the similar process and they had to have an additional sponsor.
He's doing for wife mother. Because USCIS don't accept her W-2 after Mother Day.
Okay. Sometimes USCIS will ask for a different sponsor if they don't agree with what you're doing. I'm wrong. So CC, he's here telling you that, but you do have to have tax documents to support your income. You can't just say you make a certain amount of money. You have to support your income and prove that. That's part of your I-130 process.
This is every year change. This is limit. They need to check the USCIS.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know the number. I'm not going to give people numbers or tell them.
But it's not so big money if you not work.
I was going to say, it's not a substantial amount of money.
If you're not McDonald's worker, this is okay.
You can be a McDonald's worker and sponsor somebody.
Yeah, maybe.
If you're a full-time worker. But you do have to show. So another thing that you need to know if you're bringing someone in on a green card is that the government asks you to sponsor them for 10 years. And they don't want you to use government assistance. So you have to be able to provide health insurance for your spouse throughout their whole entire process. And you are financially liable throughout your whole entire process. So don't just think you're going to bring them here and live how you've been living. If you get government assistance, your spouse cannot. Your spouse cannot get a medical card or use government assistance. The government wants you to show that they are going to be able to contribute to this country financially, that the government is not going to be supporting them. They want you to show that you are able to sponsor them or their sponsor is able to take that accountability. You cannot get medical card. You cannot get medical card for your spouse or their children. You have to provide medical health insurance for them. So just be aware that you do have to provide insurance for your partner when they come into this country and you're their sponsor. There's a lot of things that you really should look into before you decide to go into the green card process. Our style's a little bit chaotic, but we have lots of good information to share. So if you think of something specific, please ask. We're happy to help. We're happy to help you in your process if we can. So if you like us, like, subscribe, and follow. See you soon.